Problem 13 says find the measures of the angles of a triangle if the measure of one angle is 10 less than the second angle and the third angle is 3 times the first angle. You're also asked to go through all 4 steps of the problem-solving process: understand, translate, solve, and interpret. And so we'll start by completing the understand step by reorganizing all the information that we're given. We identify what we're finding. We identify the relationships that are part of the problem. And then the last piece of information that they don't give us, but that we know based on the fact that we're talking about angles in a triangle, is the fact that the angles are going to sum to 180 degrees. That's going to help us figure out how to translate this situation. If we're talking about angles in a triangle, then that means all 3 angles are going to add up to 180. And so that lets us set up a skeleton for this problem, showing that when we add the 3 angles together, we get the total sum of the angles as a result. Our next job is to fill in the blanks of that skeleton. We know that the total is going to be 180 degrees. And then we'll start working through the list of relationships that we made. One angle is 10 less than a second angle. 10 less means that we're subtracting. And it says that it's 10 less than the second angle. So that means that I'm going to use x by itself to represent angle 2, which allows me to represent angle 1 as x minus 10. And we just have to fill out the information for angle 3, and it says that the third angle is 3 times the first angle. Algebraically, that's what that would look like. 3 times what we used to represent the first angle, which was x minus 10. Now we need to solve and interpret this situation. So in the solve box, we're going to rewrite the equation that we wrote in our translate step. And then we'll go ahead and solve for x by first distributing the 3 and then combining our like terms and doing what we need to do to get x by itself. And so our result from solving that equation is x is equal to 44. When we get to our interpret step, it helps for us to revisit our understand and translate step to figure out what it is exactly that we were supposed to solve for to begin with. So if I return to my understand box, the first thing that I identified was the fact that I'm supposed to be finding the angle measures. So I'm going to start by making a spot for all 3 of the angles that I was supposed to solve for. Next thing I want to do is go back to the previous slide again and look at my translate step and figure out what I used to represent for angle 1, for angle 2, and for angle 3. So angle 1 was just x minus 10, angle 2 was x by itself, angle 3 was 3 times x minus 10. So I'll start with my representation for angle 1. That's telling me to take what I got for x and to subtract 10 from it. I got 44 for x, and 44 minus 10 gives me a result of 34 degrees. Angle 2 is x by itself, which means angle 2 is 44 degrees. And then finally, angle 3 was 3 times x minus 10. I'll replace the x with 44. And that gives me 3 times 34, which is 102 degrees. And you can always double check by adding those angles up to find out that they do in fact add up to 180 degrees. The important part of the interpret step is to make sure that you explain the meaning of your answer and to make sure that you answer all parts of the question. Our end result was not just to solve for x, it was to make sure that we got values for all 3 angle measures. Problem 14 says a computer was purchased for $594.12 including tax. If the tax rate was 6%, what was the original price of the computer? So again, we're going to go through the 4 steps of problem solving. I'm going to start by organizing the information that they gave us. They gave us a purchase price, they gave us a tax rate, and they tell us that our job is to solve for the original price. When we go to translate this, in order to get the purchase price of anything, you have to start with the original price and then add on the tax. And so my skeleton is going to represent that, starting with the original price, adding on the tax, equaling the purchase price. Since original price is what I'm solving for, that's my unknown, I'm going to use x to represent the original price. In the second blank, in order to find a percent of anything, you have to use multiplication. In this case, we want to know what the tax was on the original price. Since I don't know what the original price was, that means that I have to take 0.06 and multiply it to x, which is what I'm using to represent the original price. And then they gave us a purchase price of $594.12, and so that's going to go into the equation on the other side of my equal sign. So now I'm ready to solve and interpret. I'm going to go ahead and rewrite the equation from my translate box into the solve box. X and 0.06x, those are like terms, so I can combine that to 1.06x, and then continue to divide in order to isolate the x. Again, based on the previous slide, x by itself was used to represent the original price, so when I go to interpret, I need to make sure and explain that that's what that result means.